In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. We give you thanks, Lord, for this wonderful evening. The weather is cooperating and give us that cool weather that we need. And tonight we come to the City Hall asking you to continue to guide us in many ways that we could conduct our business in the way that pleasing to the city and pleasing to you. And then we ask you to send your blessing upon all of us, the commissioners, the chairman, the vice chairman, city planner, attorney, and engineer, and then all those who are here tonight with us. And then we ask you to continue to bless us in very special ways so that we continue to do work, benefit us, and benefit others. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen.
Your mic.
It's on now.
Yeah.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Public business from the floor. If individuals are unable to stay for the entire meeting, we offer a short period of time for anyone who has to leave early who would like to address the commission. You're offered a 2-minute time slot. Do we have any early speakers, Mr. Ludicky?
We have none that have indicated, Mr. Chair.
All right, very good. Then any person who would like to address the commission on any agendized item is asked to fill out a speaker's card and give it to our recording secretary. So when the item is called, we'll call upon you to offer your testimony. So you understand the rules of the road here. That's for public comment. Typically, when we have applicants who wish to present their case to us, we allow the applicants a period of time to be thorough and present their information to us. We may have questions of applicants. The public is then allowed to speak, and if the applicant wishes to rebut the testimony, they certainly can do that as well. So, but typically if we have an item before us that is what we call an uncontested hearing, typically something as routine as an extension of time on a matter we've heard a number of times before. Quite often we don't even hear a staff report, nor is there any public comment, because they're typically routine. Just so you know, this commission meets twice a month. Usually the week prior to this meeting. We meet here in this chamber. It is a public meeting. However, we don't deliberate, nor do we vote. We just listen. And to our staff to give us a report on what the upcoming agenda items may be. We ask our questions. So oftentimes when an item is before us today, we don't necessarily get into a very deep discussion on an item that's what we consider routine. However, if the public wishes to offer comment on any item, we certainly will listen to that and will typically ask staff to respond. First item is our consent calendar, which is, before I mention that, I have two of our members are ill tonight, Commissioner Harvey and Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Coronado, I may have had a work commitment, I'm not sure. He didn't say, but he's unable to attend. So we have 4 members here, which is our minimum for a quorum. So we can take action. However, I do have a question of our Assistant City Attorney. If a member wishes to recuse, since we only have 4, then what? We haven't had this circumstance in quite a while, and I don't recall
It's
what
a really
we do.
interesting question. I don't know that you can take action on the matter because you won't have a majority of commissioners here to vote on it.
Okay. So your advice is that the matter not be acted upon? Well, we can take a staff report, we can take public testimony.
And keep the public hearing open and continue until the next meeting. Yes.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, first item is our consent calendar, which is approval of the minutes of our regular meeting of April 17th, 2017.
Move approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, April 17, 2017.
Thank you,
I'll second that.
thank you. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. We had a request from Commissioner Cook to consider moving up item 10, which is a new business item, and I think you have a comment to make on that. If no one objects, we'll move up item 10 on the agenda to hear that now. And you had a concern?
I would like to recuse myself as I work on this property, Ellis and John Transitional Care Center.
So, Mr. Ludicky, are you presenting on this?
Can we present? Yes, I can give you a brief summary of the situation. This particular item involves the property that was formerly used as the Lancaster Community Hospital, as well as the associated uses that exist on property to the north of that site. The current land use designation in the general plan for that overall property, as well as the zoning classification, are H, hospital zone. That zoning classification in particular, if you were to review it, it's very limiting in the number of and type of uses that it permits. I think there's like 6 permitted uses that are a part of that. We've had some.
Does it include what's currently on the site?
Yes, it does. However, let me make a clarification on that. To the north part of that site, for instance, there are at least one, maybe a couple of office buildings. Under the terms of the hospital zoning classification, you are limited to the use of those for medical offices. If you were to have an attorney, for instance, or a financial planning person want to rent one of those, technically under the code, that's not permitted within the hospital classification. This is the very issue that's been raised by one of the property owners in that location. So what staff is requesting of the commission is to direct staff to review whether it would be appropriate to look at a general plan amendment and zone change for that overall property. Certainly something that would permit the existing uses that are there to continue to be legal and not create a problem for them, but to also provide a little more leeway and flexibility on the use of some of the other existing buildings, given the lack of the hospital use being there now.
So general plan amendments are, we can do what, 4 a year?
You are allowed to amend any element of the general plan a maximum of 4 times a year, yes.
So would this be the only general plan amendment site to consider, or would there be others?
As far as initiation of those changes, I don't know of any other sites that, at this point anyway, staff would recommend that as a city we initiate or look at initiate changing. However, we do have a number of applications that have been submitted that have general plan amendments associated with them. So if we were to receive direction into looking at this and we were to determine that it would be appropriate to look at consideration of an amendment to the general plan, we would obviously need to group that with other requests that are in existence right now.
Could you refresh us on the internal process of a general plan amendment if it's applicant-driven?
Most of the ones that we have are applicant-driven. There are people who want to request a change in the land use designation. That's almost always accompanied by a request for a zone change and a proposed development project of some kind. We get them periodically. Actually, the number that we've gotten in the last few months is larger than the number we've gotten recently for them. But they're not uncommon, and most of the time they come from that. The one exception, and it's not a land use change, it's a policy change that you will be seeing as a commission during, I think beginning or as early as next month. The city is looking at a fairly significant revision to its plan for physical mobility tied with the adoption of a master plan of complete streets that we have been working on.
So would it be advantageous to take some of the applications that are currently pending and combine it with this, or would it bog this one down?
I would suggest that you probably, internally, I think we would look at trying to combine them. I don't think that putting this one with them would hold up other requests. They have a certain process that they have to go through anyway. So, and there are, as I said, 4 opportunities for that, and we are in May. We're almost halfway through the year. So I think we can
Is that per calendar year?
make it work.
Or
It's per calendar year.
So we're into the middle of May. It's not likely you're going to get 4 this year no matter what.
Yeah, I would have a hard time envisioning that.
Do you have speakers on this?
I have at least one. Let me make sure. Yes.
All right.
Daniel Wasniewski.
Good afternoon and welcome.
How are you?
We've met before,
Yes, we did.
about 10 minutes ago, I think.
That's right. So I was part of the development team that helped develop the Ellison John Center, which was formerly the Lancaster Community Hospital. There are 3 parcels there, from the way I understand, that we own and are on 50%, which is one of the parcels. The other ones belong. There's 2 office buildings there and a parking lot are the 3 other parcels. What we're requesting is that the city looks at the other 3 parcels that rezone, and we understand the restrictions the hospital has for those other buildings, and we want them to thrive business-wise. It's good for us, it's good for them. But for our purposes as a skilled nursing facility, we believe it's important that we keep the hospital zoning. We have within the building a subacute unit, which is 56 beds within the building that are, we have trach patients, vent patients there, and it's sort of undefined in the state, especially with OSHPA, the Office of Statewide Health Planning Department, what these beds are. And the concern is if we change it to something that is not as at the same level in terms of zoning, it's not on the hospital level, then we're going to have a problem with those beds being usable within the state. As well as from the way the code is written, it says that hospital includes convalescent home as well, and no one really uses that term anymore, and a lot of the cities have that I've seen. Back in the day, they defined a skilled nursing facility as a convalescent home or convalescent hospital, and today it's defined as a skilled nursing facility. So from our purposes, the way we see it, if it's possible to keep the hospital zone for this building, and if there are restrictions that come with it to the surrounding properties, we'll be more than happy to work with the property owners or assign something that would allow them to use their properties for other uses, because we, like I said, we want them to thrive, and we would love to see other, medical uses go in there, but it's not necessary for us to have them not be thriving businesses there. But that's,
Very good. Is that all you have, Dolph?
That's
All right,
all,
very
yeah.
good. Well, thank you. Any questions?
Yes, so this would be for staff. Can you do all of the properties, or can you split it up and just have the two that they're requesting on the office buildings and leave their zoning as a hospital zone?
From the city standpoint, it can look at revising any part or all of that area. So there's no magic to doing all of it.
Is there any way we can look at it as just leaving his as a skilled nursing facility in a hospital zone and then redo the others?
Certainly, if that is part of if the commission, when it's got a full quorum, provides direction to staff to move forward, you can give direction that that's one of the options to consider.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? All right, thank you. And thank you for your
thank you
comment.
so much.
Any other speakers?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, then. Since we do not have a quorum, we can't take an official action to direct staff to proceed with initiating a general plan amendment and potential zone change. But I suspect when we do have a quorum, that'll be the direction.
We can place this on next month's agenda.
Next month? All right, very good. Thank you.
Do we need a motion to continue? No? No.
It's actually no action. There's no motion, there's no action. We don't have a quorum to act. To take action, I guess is the proper term rather than act. Act is what they do at Disneyland, I think, isn't it? Welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're back on item 2 on our agenda, which is conditional use permit 15-08 and tentative tract map number 72534. Do we have speakers on this item?
No speakers on this item, Mr. Chairman.
None?
None.
All right, then, thank you. The recommendation is to continue the public hearing. Anyone have any questions on the recommendation? The date certain would be next month, 2 months,
Yeah, I'd continue it to June,
till when?
till the June meeting.
Till June? Okay. All right, then, the recommendation is to continue this to the regular meeting in June. Somebody care to offer that motion, please?
I move that we continue item number 3 to June meeting of Planning Commission.
Number 2.
Second.
Thank you. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 4-0, and we'll place the item on the June meeting.
Thank you. Next item is conditional use permit 17-05. For the record, we have not received a uncontested letter on this matter, so may we have a staff report, please?
Chairman Bose, members of the commission, the proposed project is a banquet hall facility associated with private catered events and to allow alcohol, specifically beer, wine, and spirits, to be sold or served on the premises. The banquet hall would be available for rent for various types of private events such as weddings, receptions, birthdays, dances, and similar conference and meeting type events. The hours of operation are Sunday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to midnight, but the facility would only be open when it has been reserved for a private event. The primary caterer for the facility would be the Rio Brazilian Grill, which currently holds a Type 58 caterer's license. Clients may hire their own caterer for events. However, any caterer hired to provide or sell alcohol shall be required to have a Type 58 caterer's license from ABC or to obtain a temporary permit. No renter of the facility shall provide or sell alcohol without the appropriate ABC license. Live entertainment associated with some private catered events would consist of DJs, musicians, and vocalists. No live entertainment in the form of live bands would be allowed with the exception of banquets. As the project is not an entertainment establishment such as a nightclub, a condition has been included which prohibits the facility from operating as an entertainment establishment. All events would be by invitation only. Tickets would not be sellable for any event to the public. In order to ensure that operations run smoothly, a condition has been added requiring security personnel for events to be provided at a minimum of 2 guards per 100 patrons, with an additional guard for every 50 patrons after that. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have, and I believe the applicant may be in the audience.
All right, thank you.
So this venue is not a nightclub like the ones we've had to in the past,
No, it is not.
and the difference is,
Nightclubs are entertainment venues that are open to the public at any given point in time. These are private events. These are not, you couldn't go there on any given Saturday night to go dancing. It's not available for that kind of use.
so this is like the main event on the boulevard?
The main event on the boulevard, there's another banquet hall facility off of L14, I believe. That type of use. It is for private catered events.
And they're watched pretty closely by the city for,
That and public safety definitely keeps an eye on them.
thank you.
On addition to the condition list, 1709, item 3, calls out prior to occupancy, the applicant shall apply for.
Correct.
Applying doesn't necessarily grant occupancy, so shouldn't it say, should receive occupancy?
We can change it to that. That's how Building and Safety provided it to us.
I got that, but applying doesn't mean you get access, or you get occupancy nor sign off, right?
Correct. They need to upgrade their facility to match that type of occupancy use.
Get fire department approval and all the other
Correct.
stuff,
Correct.
all the fun stuff. When notice was given on this, did all the tenants get notified on this? Like
Yes,
we've
they
got?
did. They were
Good.
hand-delivered.
And through our process, the landlord is obliged to agree to the applicants applying for this use?
Yes, when they submit their application, the property owner or the property owner's agent is required to
Okay.
sign the application.
Notice from the floor plan, there are no facilities for dishwashing service, 3-compartment sink, none of that. It's
Right, because there's no kitchen with this. There's simply an area in which to serve food. All of the
so
food and stuff is brought in and then taken away.
hauled in, hauled out.
Yes.
So health department has no issues then?
Well, they would have to be inspected, the health, just like any other
But for a
facility.
catering facility, they don't need those kinds of amenities installed.
Well, they have a sink for washing whatever they would need to wash. There is one in there. but there's not a full-blown kitchen. They're not cooking on the premises.
No, there's not a three-compartment sink either, nor a garbage disposal or any of that stuff, so whatever. I guess my concern is granting a conditional use permit when for food service, that the floor plan doesn't reflect the typical things we see. As long as the applicant knows what they're up against, that's their problem. Right?
Correct.
Good. Okay, do we have speakers on this?
I have one question, Jocelyn. I may have missed it, it might be in here, but what's the maximum occupancy?
240.
I honestly don't have the answer to that question.
Oh, okay, maybe the applicant can answer that then. Thank you.
I think when you counted the seating, it was like 240 or something like that, wasn't it?
Sorry, it's on the site plan. It's 288.
288. But I think the way the table configuration was 240. Maybe. Okay. And thank you, by the way, for providing the adjacencies that you shared with us.
Is that what you're looking for?
No, the adjacencies, that was provided to us via email, so we see what adjacent types of uses.
Right, but is that what you're looking for in the future?
Yeah, great,
Okay.
thank you. It's actually attached to our item 7 instead of this one, but doesn't matter. Identifies three alcohol beverage sales uses, 1 a nightclub and 2 restaurants. That's it. Okay, very good. No speakers on this?
I have no speakers cards,
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman.
So if there's any further questions from anyone? No? So without objection, we'll close the public hearing, consider a motion.
Move adopt resolution number 17-09 approving conditional use permit number 17-05.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. All right, the next items, I should say, are new public hearings. So without objection, the public hearings are open on item 4A, 4B, 4C. These are extensions of tentative tract maps. The first one is tentative tract map number 60949. Public hearing's open. For the record, we did receive an uncontested letter on this item as well as item 4B and 4C. This item's, do we have any speakers on this one?
No speakers on this item, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. This is the third and final one-year extension, right?
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions from anyone? All right. What's your pleasure?
I move that we grant a one-year extension to May 22nd, 2018, based on the findings contained in the staff report, subject to the revised condition list attachment to Resolution 06-42.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Next item is item 4B, which is tentative tract map 72565. Do we have speakers on this one?
No speaker cards, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you. This is the second of the three extensions available. Any questions from anyone? No speakers? What's your pleasure?
I move that we grant a one-year extension to May 19th, 2018, based on the findings contained in the staff report and subject to the revised conditions list attachment to resolution number 14-05.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. And brings us to item 4C, which is vesting tentative tract map 67494. This is the first of three potentially available extensions on this map. Do we have speakers on this?
No speakers, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Questions, member? What's your pleasure?
I'll move to grant a one-year extension to April 21st, 2018, based on the findings contained in the staff report and subject to the revised condition list attachment to resolution number 08-11.
Thank you. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Item 5. Item 5 is a new public hearing on conditional use permit 17-07. The applicant is the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Los Angeles and for Sacred Heart Church, the new worship center. So without objection, the public hearing is open on this matter. We have received an uncontested letter. However, I'm sure we have speakers, right?
I have two of them,
Okay.
I believe.
May we have a staff report then, please?
Excuse me.
Good evening,
Christopher.
Chair Vost and Commissioners. I have before you tonight conditional use permit number 17-07. The applicant is requesting to construct a 30,000 square foot church and associated facilities as part of the Sacred Hearts campus expansion. With prior approval of the Director's Review number 10-78, this was for a parking lot. The applicant has constructed off-site improvements, including new curbs, gutters, catch basins, storm drains, and installed a parkway planner with landscaping and irrigation on Jackman Street, Beach Avenue, and Kettering Street. Consistent with the Lancaster design guidelines, the building would match architecturally with the existing church, and all facades would contain sufficient articulation. Staff is recommending approval of the request because it meets all the requirements of the zone, will not adversely affect nearby residents or businesses. The proposed project was part of the overall vision of the Newark Downtown Neighborhood Revitalization Transit Village Plan, and the proposed site layout and building design would enhance the existing church campus by replacing an undeveloped dirt lot with an attractive new church. Therefore, staff is recommending approval. That concludes staff presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. By the way, somebody switched your title. You're now city engineer.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you guys were playing a trick on us.
The city engineer's been demoted to associate planner. He did this on purpose? I was at a meeting the other day, and I got assigned to a different commission, actually. Didn't slow me down much, though.
Was it criminal justice?
It was criminal justice, yeah. They didn't hook me up, but I felt a little nervous the whole meeting. So, the applicant's opportunity to present, or Who do we have to speak?
Fran Sarasaris is the one speaker that I have.
Oh, all right, Fran. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman Voss, Vice Chair Hall, and Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, and staff. So, you know, my name is Fran Sarasaris, and all I want to say is I am, of course, for the building of this church. As the city has needed this church for many, many years, because we're bursting at the seams. And I just wanted to give my little viewpoint here. Thank you very much for listening to me. God bless you all.
Thank you. No other speakers?
I have no other cards.
And Christopher, on the site plan, or floor plan, if you will, sort of floor plan. I don't have the exhibit, so I can't read what it says. But on the more or less east end of the church, it looks like a daily chapel, as opposed to what I would call it. Is that what it is? For smaller daily worship, as opposed to using the large 1,500-seat facility?
The applicant is here. We can have them confirm that.
Oh, okay. They didn't put in a card. Looks like an architect to me. Welcome.
Right. It's that obvious, right?
That,
Commissioners, thank you, and staff. They've been
Tell us
very
your name.
helpful. Jim Van Komperl, the JVC Architects.
welcome, Jim.
Thank you very much. We appreciate being here. We've been working on this project for quite some time, and so we're excited to get it to this point. Yes, there is a small, it's about 150-seat daily mass. We call it a daily mass, but it's a chapel. Could be used for small weddings, small funerals, that kind of thing, so that they don't have to use the larger church for those kind of events.
But it calls out of phase 3B, so is it, but the design reflects that it must be built with the facility.
Right. The intent is to build it all at one time. The only reason that it might be considered to be held back is if they don't have the funds to build the whole thing at once, in which case they'd want to do it.
Kind of like the tower, kind of like the bell tower.
Kind of like the bell tower, yes. Right. So
I have some familiarity with
you've done this sort of
building
thing.
churches without bell towers, a little
Right.
further west.
Right. They're harder to raise money than the building itself. That's difficult.
Called never.
So, right.
Either build it on the front end or it'll never get built.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Right.
Speaking of money, how's the congregation doing on this?
I think they've actually made good progress.
That's
So
great.
We're hoping next month to go downtown Los Angeles and get some real permission to take the next step. So
Super. I'd asked staff a question at our briefing last week. Quite often, religious congregations who are building in phases determine full entitlement with a project. However, you folks haven't asked for that. But when you look at the campus that you're on, you already have an existing church which would be converted into a, quote, parish hall. You have a school, you have playgrounds, you have parking lots, you have a rectory, which gives me the sense of potentially a full entitlement. You might want to consider that so you don't have to keep coming back, assuming that something happens with the funding, you don't build right away, then you have to come back for another hearing later and all that sort of stuff. So you might want to consider that with our planning director. There may be a good idea to talk to him about that.
do that as a follow-up application.
Well,
kind of.
I don't know. Maybe it's something we can deal with today. I don't know. Anyway, anything else you want to tell us about the, it's a 1,500-seat facility, right?
Correct, right. So the intent is there's a large plaza that connects this building to the other buildings that are immediately to the west, and that plaza aligns with, I believe, Cedar, the street that's kind of connecting through. So the idea was that it's an inviting plaza as it comes through visually, and that's why there's the two towers now that kind of frame that plaza from that side from the downtown corridor. The building itself picks up its architectural style, mainly taking its cues from the existing buildings that are there. We're trying not to completely reinvent the look of the campus, but blend it in and make it an attractive addition.
It's not a criticism, but an observation. For my chair, there's insufficient non-able-bodied parking. You have 11 spaces identified or something of that nature, which is probably the minimum. The reality is parishioners that age tend to want to park closer to the front door or to whatever access point there is. I know in our case out west, we ended up adding additional parking spaces because of the need of the congregants who are, what's the term for pre-boomers? What's a pre-boomer? It's a person.
Parents of boomers?
That's a person over 70 years old, I think.
Right.
Isn't that how it goes? Something like that? If you're born in 1946 or later, you're a boomer.
Right.
But before 1946, you're something else. You're alive, hopefully.
Well, right, yeah. I think I'm the tail end of the boomers, so I guess I call them my parents. But
there you go.
Right. I mean, right, and we are sympathetic to that. If you know, on paper, we're showing that we're kind of maxed out for the parking code, so we didn't want to show a bunch of more handicap parking and then be into a debate about meeting the required parking amounts and asking for exceptions for that. So we certainly will take a closer look at that, and if there's some other areas where we can pick up a few more parking spots and then get some more accessible parking spots closer by, we'll do that.
The other challenge will be folks will park in the so-called cul-de-sac and won't move.
Catholics park everywhere.
That's an operational issue that the pastor will deal with, just from experience. All right, thank you. Any other questions from anyone? We wish you well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other speakers?
No other cards, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. May we have a motion then?
I move to adopt resolution number 17-13 approving conditional use permit number 17-07.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I got it. All right, please vote.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right. All right, next item is item number 6. This is a public hearing on conditional use permit number 12-06, tentative parcel map 74904. And the applicant is Antelope Valley Christian Center. So without objection, the public hearing is open on this matter. Do we have speakers on this item?
No, I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. For the record, we have received an uncontested letter from the applicant. And just briefly, Ms. Swain, why we're seeing, we've seen this before as a conditional use permit.
You have. So this is a parcel map to subdivide approximately 81 acres into 4 lots. Because our ordinance allows conditional use permit expiration dates to be coterminous with a parcel or tentative map. The CUP was approved several years ago. It's received all of the extensions that it can possibly be received. So the parcel map was filed. If the commission approves the parcel map, then that will make the expiration date of the conditional use permit for the church coterminous with the expiration dates of the parcel map.
And we've done this on commercial
Yes,
projects
we've done this for the
previously.
Lane Ranch project.
Right.
I'm not sure if we've had any others take advantage of that provision
Right.
at this time.
This extends, if adopted, this would extend the entitlement for up to 6 years, in effect,
Up to another 5.
up to another 5, this,
So 2 years for the parcel map plus 3 possible 1-year extensions.
which is at the end of the term is 6 years, right,
In theory, yes.
in duration. Okay. All right. And the development of the church facility, which is the conditional use permit, which that design, nothing has changed on that from our previous reviews
That is correct.
many times, is limited to only a small portion of parcel 1.
Correct. I believe it was 12 or 14 acres of a 20-acre parcel, or of the parcel that they want
Right.
for the church. The remaining 3 parcels could either be leased or sold off.
Very good. All right, thank you. So we have no speakers on this, right?
No speakers.
Okay. Any members? What's your pleasure?
I move to adopt resolution number 17-14 approving tentative parcel map number 74904.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, thank you. Actually, we're supposed to close the public hearing on every single item, and so technically the public hearing is closed, and now we can vote. Please vote.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. Next item. This item is item number 7. This is an environmental impact report 15-02, specific plan 15-01, and tentative track map 73507. So without objection, the public hearing is open on this item. We have not received a uncontested letter. We have speakers. I'm assuming that's why a lot of folks are here, or some of the people are here.
Yes.
We have speakers?
Yes, at least
Okay.
one.
So may we have a staff report then, please?
Chair Vos and Commissioners, the item before you tonight represents the Yvonne North project, which includes Environmental Impact Report 15-02, Specific Plan 15-01, and Tentative Track Map 73507. This is an application to create a master plan community. The map would subdivide the project into 753 single-family lots, 2 lots for private neighborhood parks, 2 lots for open space for the purpose of stormwater detention in streets. The parks are designed to serve as community nodes and social gathering spaces and are sized at 4.1 and 6.3 acres. Proposed along the west side of 65th Street West, in the center of the community, is a 12.1 acre open space area which will serve stormwater and water quality filtration purposes. The proposed tentative map is consistent with the layout and design of the specific plan. To get you oriented, we have an aerial view, if you can go to that one, with the subject property outlined in red. The site is bounded to the north by Avenue K, to the south by future Avenue KA, to the east by existing residential homes, and to the west by 70th Street West. Let's go back to the map. 65th Street West is a centrally located north-south oriented street. Street A is the backbone east-west oriented street that connects to 65th at the roundabout in the approximate center of the community. The roundabouts are intended to slow traffic and serve as attractive identifying features. In the two roundabouts, traffic circulates around a central landscape island where vehicles slow to merge, make turns, and yield to pedestrians. At each intersection, the internal streets narrow to provide traffic calming. These narrow roadways provide for increased walkability within the community by encouraging drivers to approach intersections at slower speeds. The project contains a well-developed sidewalk and pathway system that encourages movement by foot and bike access to the parks or simply for exercise. Cul-de-sac cul-de-sacs include cut-through paseos to provide connection for walkers and cyclists to adjacent streets. The specific plan document consists of 6 sections that collectively describe the project setting, the overall concept, specific development requirements and regulations, required infrastructure, and administrative procedures. There are 9 planning areas with lots ranging from 5,250 to 8,700 square foot lots, resulting in a gross density of 3 dwelling units per acre. In the planning area and development standards section of the specific plan, there are development standards for each planning area. Adherence to the standards will help ensure that community builds out as intended. Let's see, and then if we can go to the elevations. The specific plan's architectural theme and style guidelines section describes the visual character that is desired for development. The desired architectural theme will be an updated interpretation of traditional California suburban design. This theme could be represented in architectural elements found in French country, Craftsman, European manner, Italian, Spanish, Monterey, traditional, and Tuscan. The proposal is consistent with the Lancaster Architectural and Design Guidelines. The specific plan's incorporation of these guidelines are intended to provide a general framework for design. A final EIR has been prepared that analyzes potential impacts of the proposed project. Prior to taking action on the project, the Planning Commission is required to certify that the final EIR was prepared in accordance with the requirements of California Environmental Quality Act and find that the identified environmental effects are insignificant, adequately mitigated, or acceptable due to overriding considerations. The density of the proposed development is consistent with the general plan of URSP overlay. The proposed subdivision meets the city's vision and intent for the SP zone. The specific plan document serves as a guide to implement the goals, policies, and objectives of the city's general plan. The plan establishes the necessary framework, requirements, and guidelines to ensure that development of the site meets the goals of providing for a diverse inventory of housing for varied household types and income levels, and providing an interconnected system of sidewalks and pathways that link residents to neighborhood parks and surrounding neighborhoods. Therefore, staff is recommending that the Commission certify the final EIR, approve tentative track map number 73507, and recommend approval to the City Council of specific plan number 15-01. That concludes staff's presentation. I'm available for any questions, and the applicant is here to provide any additional details.
All right, thank you. We have a number of speakers. Is the applicant present and wish to address us?
Yes, Mike White.
Mr. White, welcome. Before you start, just so the public understands what we're reviewing, if you're unfamiliar with the process, besides the track map itself, which is in multiple 9 pages, I think, we also have reviewed a draft environmental impact report, a final environmental impact report, the Avante North specific plan, the other documents we've received electronically, including our findings or recommended findings. Our obligation as a commission is to review all of these documents prior to the meeting, some of which we received on Friday. You'll note that there are 3 members absent today. Typically, a project of this magnitude, we generally have a full commission to consider it because these are important development standards to review. At any rate, whatever the pleasure of the commission is at the end of all the testimony, we'll make that determination when we get there. But I just want everybody to understand how much paper or electronic documents, depending on your method of review, we've had an opportunity to look at. The applicant, on the other hand, started this project, I believe, in 2015 or thereabouts, and has been active to get it to this point overnight. Overnight is 2.5 years to get it to the hearing. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Mr. White, I've never met you before. I don't think. Maybe I have, and I just don't recall. But this is a long, tedious, complicated, expensive process. How it turns out is what we'll all decide, we all up here. We appreciate everyone being here tonight and to offer whatever comments you wish to offer, and we hope that we'll be able to answer your questions or concerns if you have any. So with that, Mr. White, please proceed.
Thank you. Mike White with CV Communities, and just to characterize what you a little bit further, yes, we've 2015, and I would say that a lot of care has been taken to make sure every I is dotted and T is crossed on this one. But I'm happy that we're here tonight, and I compliment staff. The long journey we've been through. They've done a great job. I think it's a great community. It'll be a fantastic community when it's built, and we hope that you agree with us and approve the project tonight. The reason I think it took so long is because we're dealing with such a large piece of property, large number of units, and it's a unique opportunity to do something special for the community and not just your standard subdivision. The original plan that was here before was a large project just like this, just about the same number of units, but it was all the same lot size. It had a big park, but it was also a detention basin. And so, you know, the amenities of the project wasn't the same as what we have today. And so the unique idea, or the unique challenge to this project, was to develop a project that wasn't just a cookie-cutter subdivision, something that had recreational opportunities and can deal with the drainage. And I think the plan, as you see it now, with 2 parks on either side of the community, divided by 65th Street, and the drainage a drainage feature, rather than be a part of the park where you can only use it, you can't use the park when it's raining, is now a separate feature in the community. It creates kind of a bridge effect as you cross over into the community on that side of the property, and it's not an eyesore anymore. It's something that just looks like it's been planned and integrated into the project. So that took some time, quite frankly, to engineer that so that it actually worked. I think the other thing unique about the project, and you only see this in some of the communities in Orange County, is that some of the care and traffic calming devices that we did in the community, the roundabouts, using that's something unique to this area, but it's becoming unique in a lot of places. And so, you know, a lot of time was taken to develop those features so that they actually worked with the project. And so, you know, we also didn't want to have, and I think I said earlier, the same lot size. By having varied lot sizes with varied architectural sizes, we open up the project to not just one particular buyer, but an array of buyers, from people who want a smaller house on a smaller lot to somebody who wants a larger house on a larger lot. And that way the project is more successful and more balanced. And so, other than that, I think the document actually speaks for itself. I have our consultants here. I know the environmental team is here. I think the city's done a great job. I'm really here to answer any more questions you have, and look forward to your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. We may have some questions for you now, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
Go ahead.
Just a couple of things. When we grew up here in the valley, Avenue K at 60th had a Joshua tree about where your one roundabout is. It would kind of be like a throwback, if that could be. I'm just throwing it out. I don't want to condition it. I just thought it would be an interesting thing to add on.
To add some Joshua trees in the roundabouts?
Well, there was a giant Joshua tree there at one time. It caused numerous problems, but at the same time, it was kind of a landmark feature of Antelope Valley.
And where'd you say it's located? About where the the 65th and,
It was at 60th and K, but 65th and K would be a nice nod back, be nice nostalgia.
you know what? Joshua Tree is something that's, the high desert, so.
It's pretty much common around here.
I think there's some opportunities with the landscape design, and I'll look to staff to see how they want to deal with that, but, I mean, rather than run away from it, if we can find a way to incorporate it, I'm okay with that.
In the parks, they described how the parks are going to have nice walkways, covered areas, park benches, but it didn't say anything about barbecues. Is that not going to be required or not going to be?
No, it would be. I don't think it was, a lot of detail was in that, but the idea is to have the idea was to design the parks. We didn't want them to be active ball fields that become a traffic nightmare on the weekends for, play. We wanted it to be more of a serene setting where people could actually go and enjoy the park, barbecue, walk, play in the fields, and that kind of stuff. So if it's not abundantly clear in the document, we'll make sure we add that, for sure.
We've just recently come out of a major drought, and one of the major pushes that we had is to use what we call purple pipe water to water our parks. I realize that the purple pipe hasn't gotten out there yet, but while you're building the track, would it be easier to plumb the purple pipe to your parks and then have like a stub somewhere eventually when it came out? It would seem like an easy way to prevent having to tear up the roads in the future.
Well, that's a good question, Matt. You mean the actual reclaimed lines in the streets?
Well, they would be dry until
Yeah.
the purple pipe got out there, but eventually.
How far does this is a question.
The challenge with that is about,
10 miles.
well, depending on Avenue L and 10th Street West, so it's a 7.5, 8-mile run before it ever serves this.
Right. Yeah. I think
I'm just thinking of the future.
Maybe your grandchildren will be sitting up here before that ever happens, right?
maybe it's something we can look into, but a 7-8 mile run is going to be.
Well, I didn't
long.
expect you to put it in. I just thought maybe you could plumb the place ahead of
You're
time.
talking about
There might be an opportunity to provide for the, depending upon where it's coming from, but this project is unique in a lot of ways, and water is one of them. Right now in the valley, very difficult to get water for a project of this magnitude. And so over the last probably 4 or 5 years, we've secured water from another source that's actually better than the table A water you get from the State Water Project. It has a unlimited supply, and that water supply is being used to service another project in another community, but also for this community. And so this project is in a unique situation, is that the drought situation that has occurred in a lot of areas in Southern California will not be a problem for this project. So we've secured our own water, and we've secured enough to provide for the needs of the residents and all the landscaping. But certainly, if we can find a way on the reclaim to provide a facility so that it can get to the site at some time, we'll definitely do that.
It might possibly be something you could look for grants, the possibility. The multi-generational housing, you have it only on certain lot sizes. I can't remember
It's the larger lots.
the larger lots. Are you going to offer the generational when you build, or is that going to be something that'll be added on later?
So the reason we added that into the architectural guidelines today is, we're a land developer, but we do have a home building arm. We may or may not build this project, but we wanted to have the design guidelines allow for that, because a lot of projects that we've sold in other communities, they've tried to come back after the entitlement to do this multi-generational housing, and they've had challenges by jurisdictions who didn't want it. A lot of areas down in the Southern California, closer to Inland Empire, have had challenges with it because they're afraid it's just going to have multiple families living in the house and not the true essence of multi-generational. So we wanted to get that, the ability to have that in our design guidelines now. So if a builder wanted to offer that, they could. They didn't have to come back and get another level of entitlement on the project later.
On the electric vehicle charging stations, are those just going to be per house, or would that be around the parks?
I'm going to have to defer to my consulting team on that particular one. So I'll let them come up on that one. In other communities, we've actually provided the outlet in the garage, so the 220, so if you wanted to have an electrical vehicle,
It could be an option for
it could be
that.
an option. I don't have a problem with that. I'll let you answer that question.
You are, sir?
Hi, my name is Grant Henninger. I'm with TMB Planning. We prepared this specific plan. The answer to your question about the electrical vehicle charging is that that capacity will be built in now to be able to add a panel and to have the capacity to add a charger, if the homeowner desires. It will not be built in, a charger won't be built into every house upon being built. But the capacity to add one to the home will be available.
And you really won't have a public one around a park that was added in as an amenity?
I do not believe that's a requirement in the specific plan.
I just was asking if it was something to think about.
Let me go further on this one. Yeah, the reason that wouldn't be with the park is because we're not providing a parking lot per se in the park. The idea with the community is a walking community. The park is open to the public, but we think the primary people that will use the park will be the people that actually live in the community, and we want them to walk to the park as opposed to drive and park and have that additional traffic.
On the retention basin, which I thought was a great design feature, a lot of times retention basins in this area turn into wetlands,
right?
With sprinkler runoff and whatnot. Is it going to be a recreational area? Can the kids play football in it, or is it just going to be?
No, it's because it's a flood control facility. We couldn't have people in it, but it will be landscaped. It'll be maintained by the HOA. The idea is to make it have a look to it that's more of a rustic wash look. And so, yeah, if it filled up with water and you got a little wetlands going, I don't think anybody would mind. But the idea would not to let people go in it for safety reasons.
Well, the problem with the wetlands that people don't mind would want it is then becomes protected, and then you can't clean it out, and a few other odds and ends.
Well, it's going to be, yeah, I mean, this is not going to fall under that category. This is going to be a flood control facility that will be green. But with those at the bottom, you are going to get some growth. You're going to get a little standing water, but it's not going to be at the level that would allow the Army Corps to come in and claim jurisdiction.
Do you have any idea what the potential HOA costs will be?
Well, we're still working with that right now, but in our fiscal analysis and working with the city, there's certain things that the HOA is going to take on that the city isn't. Like
for instance, what would
private streets? The streets will be private, maintained by the HOA. The parks will be private, maintained by the HOA, but they'll be public. They'll be open to the public. So if I was to guess, we're probably closer to $75 to $100 a month for an HOA due, which might be on the high side, but well, the amenities you're getting that they're being maintained. It's either that or you put it on the tax rolls and you pay it through your property taxes.
Don't say Mello-Roos.
I didn't.
Good. It's a bad marketing tool, I think. Go ahead. You got any more? Ms. Cook?
You had kind of an odd expression when he said, "Don't say Mello-Roos." Has that been brought up in conversations?
For this project? Well, yes. I mean, we call it a CFD. Mello-Roos was the act in the state back in '82, I believe. Yeah, we are actively working with the school district to do a CFD for the property. There will be a CFD for maintenance. There's like your landscape maintenance, the things that the city the city maintains and the community doesn't take care of. But I've built a lot of houses in 30 years, and sometimes it's a positive and sometimes it can be a problem. Just depends on the market, depends on how it's structured, depends on the price point. But our experience is that the individuals who have a house, they have a choice. You can either buy a house with a Mello-Roos or a CFD or not. And so it will really leave it up to them. But it's good for the school district because they get their money now and they get a premium on those dollars.
But that's a separate issue with Westside Union.
It is. It is. The only CFD that the city and CFDs can be you can either finance fees or you can do construction, or in the case of a lot of jurisdictions, they sometimes used to call it an LMD. A CFD is the same mechanism. It just allows for a maintenance tax to go on a property to maintain streets and things like that. It's very common. I think it gets mixed up with the discussion about Melrose in general. It's a separate thing.
But your approach is not as a merchant builder, but as a developer to potentially spin off portions to merchant builders?
Yeah, it'd be better. For us, it would be better to build a planning area ourselves, sell the planning areas, get some building activity up here, not just one company, but maybe several companies. If we do that, then the life of the project will go quicker. I mean, we'll get the project built much quicker, as opposed to if we build it by ourselves, it's probably going to take a little bit more time. And so the idea would be to sell to some of the public builders. So we have interest from a lot of builders who build up in this area already, and maybe even ourselves. So it just depends on where we think the market is. The market has struggled until recently, and there was a pop in 13, and then it got dead flat.
No kidding.
And we've struggled, and now we're seeing a little bit more interest in the project as it's getting close to approval.
Well, we're very interested in creating sufficient housing stock to meet the demand for all the new employment that's coming into our community that now exists.
Well, we had a vision.
Not a criticism, but a comment. I mean, it lays out well, it circulates great. I mean, nice amenities. I don't think it meets the ADC guidelines as to the sidewalk design, unless I'm misreading the map. And the housing stock that's proposed, there's a single lot detached development. No other creative kinds of housing opportunities other than size and architectural feature.
Right.
Some of us think that there ought to be other types of housing opportunities in our community, and a specific plan area is a great way to address that.
Right.
Rather than a small 10, 15, 20 acre tract. That's an infill or whatever, but between this project and the project to the south, it seems to me you've got 1,600 unit potential there, that some great things can be done. Not to say that this is not great, okay? I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying that I don't see anything other than single-family detached.
Well, I think I'm not sure what too much of the plans for the other Avanti project, the Avanti South, but I do understand that they're maybe looking at something a little bit higher density than what we're doing. Just our experience in the market and out in these areas, we think that in a lot of communities, like in Ontario, there's a big master plan in Ontario, by example. A lot of builders come into a lot of high density, even smaller, lower density, but attached units, and no one was building with a single family. And really what we were being told by the market was that people they like the traditional houses. They just don't want a huge yard. They don't want a lot of maintenance. They want a small house on a small lot, a bigger house on a bigger lot. And so the unique thing about the project is it provides 5 different planning area types where, depending upon what the buyer wants, you can go from small to big, and your needs are met. It's all designed to kind of work together as opposed to spread out in different areas. It's all integrated, but yet it's different. And so while it's not attached, we think it meets what the market wants up here for this particular location. That's just our opinion. But
Well, it's your money.
yeah, it is.
You certainly have a right to your opinion.
I appreciate that.
And speaking of your money, besides what we see on the overhead here, the improvements that are tied to this off-site are substantial. Could you address those?
Well, yes. I'm just guessing the development costs for that project of this magnitude were close to $50 million. That includes quite large water reservoir off in the city of Palmdale, Avenue M60, I believe, and some pump stations and some large water lines surrounding the project. So There's a great amount of infrastructure required to build a project like this, but with the size of the project and the size of it all seems to work. And the good news is none of it is really complicated. I mean, it's a fairly flat site. We're not building hillside. It's if you're going to have a project of this magnitude, this is one to do versus something that's,
But you're still going to move 3.5, 4 million cubic yards, aren't you?
No, actually, it's probably 1.5 million yards. It's not a big grading job at all.
Right.
It's flat. And
What about downstream?
we have to
Drainage
do
downstream,
storm drain.
sewer?
We have to tie in storm drain downstream and sewer.
From where to where?
From 70th, Avenue K to, I believe,
J.
J. Yes, J.
That's no cheap opportunity.
No, that's included in that 50 million. But you got to have the project has to drain and it has to sewer. So, and some large water lines that surround the project as well.
So you have an opportunity for reimbursement from other entities that may tie in the future to that?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we're only building our frontage, so those improvements are for us. Some of the water lines will get fee credits from District 40 for the tank and the oversized lines. And our neighbor to the south, we have an agreement for shared infrastructure. Like if we upsize a line in the project, they pay their fair share and things like that. There are some credits, I think, that we can get through the city for the parks and things like that through park fees. But for most part of it, it's coming, right out of our pocket. It's the infrastructure needed to serve the project.
You talked about homeowners association or whatever title you choose to put onto the
Right.
entity,
Right.
whatever it turns out to be. And that would that be blanket over the entire project, or would it be on each planning area?
No, it would be blanket over the entire project. Every time you have an HOA or POA, wherever you want to call it, they charge a fee, and the more we have, the more blankets we have, the more expensive it is. Now, a project this side easily can be handled by one HOA. The good thing about the HOA, they take care of the maintenance that they're going to take care of, but they control the architecture. So they enforce the CCNRs. Whereas in a standard subdivision where you don't have an HOA, it's up to neighbors to do that stuff. And, I've been down that route, and it's always hard. And the HOA can be the bad guy and make sure people do the right things, keep their yards clean. And
We're not laughing at what you're saying. We have an issue in a neighborhood that's really interesting, but has no.
I'm sure I've dealt with it from time to time in my career. So
yeah, Laker Gold and Blue, I think, wasn't that what it is?
Yes, the Laker House.
It's the Laker House. Yeah.
Well, that's the unique thing. CCNRs in this community will be governed by the HOA, so you're probably not going to get that.
So that addresses your building forms. So if a builder came in, let's just say you get approval and you're a year and a half from now, you've got your infrastructure in, you've spun off a piece or two, and a builder comes in and says, gee, we think the market will support a different type of product than would fit here. That wouldn't give me any particular heartburn. I doubt it would give staff any particular heartburn, but it's a burden that I don't know how to solve at this juncture.
Well, it depends on what that change would be. Is it eliminating a cul-de-sac or something like that? I'm sure that's not an issue. But if you, just by example, let's say somebody wanted to come in and do townhomes, well, they would have to go through an approval process with you folks, and you would have to make the call that. But also through our contract, I don't think we're going to put them in a position where they're going to be able to do that, because in some cases we may actually have to develop the lots for them. A lot of developers now
they want turnkey.
They want turnkey, and so less likely they're going to pay a high price for the land with the streets in, and then come back and change it. Right. I think that the likely change that you would see would be somebody wants to come in and do a different architectural style. I can't imagine that the staff would have a problem with that unless it was something outrageous that didn't match with anything in the community. And I'm sure that that could be resolved.
Well, what's depicted in, the typical depicted
Well, those are
in-
those kind of the general examples. So,
Right.
obviously, if they follow those examples, they should have no problem. But if they wanted to do something different, that's the only thing I could see. Or they wanted a variance on something. I could see them coming back to staff. But, we're confident that staff would do the right thing in terms of the character of the specific plan and what the intent
It
was.
will, as long as we're sitting here.
As long as you're sitting there. I'm sure you're not going to let it get by you.
Well, we also have an interested community, I'm sure.
Well, just to point out, we specifically wanted to buy land in Lancaster because we felt there was an opportunity up here that wasn't, just not a lot of activity was happening. And we felt there was an opportunity to really do something special, create an opportunity in this community that you just don't see of late. And so that's why, talk to Brian, it took a long time to kind of get to the point where we're all comfortable this was a really good design.
Well, some of your
many,
other
many,
offsite-
many iterations of this thing.
Some of the other off-site development requirements, was it 50th and K, another roundabout potential in there, or a fair share?
There's a lot of fair share contributions. There's some fee credits that are covered and things like
For
that.
the sake of conversation, you want to share that with everyone? What that means?
What it means is that if in my traffic, let's say in my traffic study, I have an impact to an intersection that's, let's say it's 2%, then the city would come up with a cost for that, and I would make a financial contribution to the city for 2% of the cost. So if my impact was 20% of 100,000, I'd pay 20,000. In a lot of cases, I mitigate my impact by just the fact I pay my traffic fees. And so that money goes specifically to that intersection. Or if I paid the money for an intersection that was covered under the fee, if I did the improvement, I would get a credit. So I'm comfortable with all those things that have to be worked out between now and the time we actually commence construction. But those are pretty normal in dealing with most jurisdictions.
Well, we understand it. I'm just,
Oh, yeah. It's a pain.
well,
You don't want to be in my shoes.
well, it is,
Or
it
their
is
staff
what it
shoes
is.
through it,
And
but
and
it is
it's
what
not
it
just the city of Lancaster, it's the county of Los Angeles,
Right.
because they have multiple jurisdictional.
And we pay fees
Impact.
to the County of Los Angeles as a part of the fee program, and those monies will go to the county to mitigate specific impacts to like a couple of freeway on-ramps.
Right. As well as Avenue L, I believe there's some piece in L
Yes.
that as well. At least I thought I read that.
Yeah.
The land division, when you acquired this property, would you do a lot line adjustment to get it, or what?
Lot line adjustment?
A lot line adjustment?
Yeah.
Is that
yeah,
what
we
you-
did.
Is that what
Yeah.
you did?
Yeah, lot line.
'Cause I thought it was one parcel.
It was parcel, yeah, so we had to do a lot line adjustment. It's been a number of years, so.
So you're in fee on it then?
Oh, yeah, we own this thing outright. Yeah, we don't have, there's no bank loan on this one or anything. This is all us.
Okay. Stand by a minute. Now, this will be a question for staff. All right, anyone else? Anything? No?
Thank you.
All right,
I'll stay close.
stand by. There may be an opportunity to speak again.
Thank you.
So do we have speakers?
One.
Just one?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Lisa Four.
Lisa, hi. Welcome. Mrs. Four, that's what I should say, but it's Lisa. I've known you long enough to call you Lisa, right? How long? How many years have we known?
I'm amazed.
Long, too long, too long.
Well, I've lived here a long time, since 1964, and I'm a member of the church as well. And so I'm kind of upset with the whole Avente project, because I think it adds too many homes to an area that right now I live on 62nd and K6. And yes, I do pay Melrose $1,600 out of my total property tax of $4,900 is Melrose. So we have a quiet existence out there. It's very quiet. dogs don't bark. It's a beautiful, everybody's respectful of each other, no loud noises, no emergency vehicles, just a very quiet existence, the way Lancaster used to be back in the early 60s and 70s. And so I like that quiet existence, and I don't want it to change. However, I know at some point things have to change. What I'm opposed to most of all is just the general density of housing that these two projects represent and the amount of traffic it's going to add to L and K. Also, I understand the Avente North project has made an arrangement with the Nickel family for its water rights. And I don't know if that's to avoid paying LA County or if under what assumption the Nickel family gives them water rights. I don't understand that at all. Whether they're taking water underneath the soil or if they're getting a water allotment from AVAC using the Nickel family, I have no idea. So perhaps they could explain that. The other opposition I have is, I really don't like the roundabouts, and the reason I don't like them is emergency vehicles have a hard time getting around them, especially your hook and ladder fire trucks. I really don't understand exactly how that's going to happen. It's just somebody's arrogance to put them on a street, because honestly, most people who drive through them cannot navigate them, and they're a pain in the ass. So like the one they put on L and 10th recently, I went through it the other day, and I thought to myself, God, if there has to be an emergency vehicle, they're just going to go down K or some other street, because they're going to avoid that roundabout, because it takes time for the emergency vehicle to get around it, and then a lot of times they won't get around it. And the other opposition I have is just basically more streets to pave, and I understand this division is going to pay for its own paving of its own streets. But L and K already are impacted tremendously. I mean, the traffic on K and 50th, because it's a four-way stop, can go all the way back a quarter of a mile in the morning when people are trying to get to work. J8 doesn't go all the way through to 60th, so you have no alternative route. So, that combined with the fact that the city of Lancaster hasn't adequately paved a street in 10 years just adds to the frustration that this development is not needed. We don't need this development right now. Right now it's zoned R7000 with a park, and so I would just like to see it stay the way it was originally zoned. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have any other speakers?
No, I do not.
All right. Mr. White, care to rebut?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. A couple things. The 7,000 square foot lot, this project, the minimum lot size is 5,200, but the average is 69 on the minimum size. So all of our lots, we go 52 to 8,700 square feet. So if you average all that based on the number of units, we're at 69, so we're almost to the 7,000. That's the idea, is not to do all the same lot, but to have varied lot size so you can have varied product and more opportunity for everyone to actually own a home. On an average basis, we go from 6,500 to 10,000 square feet on average. So there's a lot of lots that are much higher than that. On the
east side of it, on the east end of the project, the density is higher. As it goes west, it's lower, right?
Well, and we did that on purpose, is because the people that live in the existing community, we didn't want to put the smaller lots by them. We wanted to have the larger, the 9s and the 7s and the 8s next to them, more closer to their actual lot size.
Okay.
Concerning the Nickel Water, yes, we purchased Nickel Water, 620 acre feet, from a much larger purchase from Nickel, and we've assigned that water to AVAC. AVAC owns the water, and we pay for the water, and the idea is, working with District 40 and the city and AVAC, is to then, we have to have a long-term maintenance to pay for that water, and that'll be as part of the CFD. I don't want to talk about that too loud, but the thing about CFD is it gets a bad rap, and a lot of people are like, well, I don't want a CFD, but you don't realize that if you don't have a CFD, you're going to pay a higher price for your house. And with a CFD, the price adjusts based on the tax rate, what the actual people can afford. So just because you have a CFD doesn't mean you're paying a high house price and have a high tax. It works the opposite way. Usually you have a lower price with a higher tax and a higher price for the house with a lower tax. But that's a market decision that the buyers make at that time, whether they want to actually buy the house or not. And the state has changed the way that's disclosed. I mean, 20 years ago they had that, but now it's even more difficult to get that by somebody, and they can't say, well, I didn't understand. It's spelled out pretty clear.
Well, you have to
Do
provide
understand.
an amortized spreadsheet, don't you?
Exactly. You have to tell them exactly what they're going to pay and how long it's going to be. And it's, you would think that if people had a problem with it, they just wouldn't buy the house. But, the market kind of adjusts for that and takes care of it. So I think that was all the questions. Melrose.
Emergency vehicles?
The roundabouts. Well, the city has a standard for the roundabouts. And so, we look to them to tell us kind of what design they want. And this is the design that they wanted.
It's a requirement that's been established by the city council and administered by this commission.
I'm not going to challenge it.
Ms. Ford talked about not needing more housing in LA County, and I was told a while back that we're quite a few housing units short. Could you address that?
Well, I haven't really, I'm a kind of the entitlement development guy, but I can say that in the reports I've seen, there's not a lot of houses that are being built in the Antelope Valley. And there are a few, but the principal problem has been probably jobs, but now that's changing with a lot of new jobs that are coming to the area. We have another piece of property in Palmdale, experienced the same kind of market downturn in 2012, 13, before we bought it, and it just kind of never recovered. But now there's a lot more activity in this area, and there's just not a lot of houses or a lot of land to build on because of water. And so I think that's going to take care of itself here shortly. There's going to be a much more demand, I think, up in this area for housing. I don't think this project is going to have any problem.
I think the demand's already here. If you look at the resale housing, at least from my industry, it's I don't market single-family homes. However, I'm well acquainted with that marketplace.
Right. Well,
you're looking at price points now pushing 12 to 16% increase year over year, month by month, declining resale house listings, the number of units being sold or offered in the $250,000 to $400,000 range is shrinking.
Right.
The demand is growing. In the rental side, you're looking at projects that have one-bedroom units available. They're gone.
Right.
You can't rent them.
Right.
The demand is so high. Where are all these folks that are going to be working and that have been hired and are being hired in the aircraft industry and other businesses here in our community?
It would be
Where
better
are
if
they
they
gonna
could live in this community and work in this community as opposed to commute in.
Right.
And,
We'd rather have them live and work here and not commute. And live in a community where they don't have to get in their vehicle to do whatever they need to do. They can walk instead of drive.
Right.
However, unless I'm off here, I think our ADC guidelines need to be looked at on this, that at least based on this map. Am I off base on that, Christopher?
Chair Bose, are you talking?
Sidewalk.
Right, we did ask the applicant to revise the map to include that, and they are working on that change.
Okay. But that's not before us. We don't have it in our hot little hand.
Correct.
So we don't know, we're not.
We'll ensure that we comply with your standards. We're not.
No, I understand that, yeah. But you can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't feel it. It's hard to say we like it or don't.
Right, Chair Bose, it is in the conditions. We're just having to revise the map, but it is in the conditions.
Okay.
I would like to address the roundabout issue. On the way here tonight, I saw two major accidents, one at J8 and 30th, and then one here at the Boulevard and 10th West. Can you explain why we are moving towards roundabouts? Traffic flow, accident rates, things like that?
Yeah, I believe Trolise can probably speak with, I believe he's actually got some stats on that I think would be helpful.
So we actually recently ran the data for the roundabout that went in at Challenger and Avenue L. And the 5 years prior to it being put in place, we were averaging around 9 collisions a year. Several of those were either injury or fatal accidents. Over the course of the last year since the roundabout is opened, we only had about, I think it was 3 accidents. Of those, we had 0 fatal, 0 injury collisions. And that's really the purpose of a roundabout, is to slow people down so that when there is a collision, the reduced speeds, your likelihood of a fatality or an injury should be reduced.
Can I ask, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Since you're on the roundabouts, what about the emergency vehicles? Do you have any data that they're not being able to enter or exit or use the roundabouts? Is there any data or proof to that?
No, our roundabouts are being designed to national standards, which are designed to accommodate all emergency vehicles.
Well, the documents we received from LA County Fire Marshal did not indicate any objection or any comment whatsoever relative to roundabouts, right?
Correct.
And another purpose, not just to reduce accidents, was to increase traffic flow. Is there an increase in traffic flow with roundabouts?
It does. Well, we look at the level of service and we make sure that it's...
But the movement of traffic is there's less delay with a roundabout.
There is less...
No reason to stop.
There is less delay, slower speeds, and less delay. Yes.
But the whole purpose of traffic calming, whether it be roundabouts or bulb outs or lane narrowing or whatever it may be, the whole purpose is to slow down the traffic so that when collisions occur, there are less damage and less injury. That's the whole purpose, right?
Correct.
So there's a method to this. This isn't unique. This project isn't unique to traffic calming. Every project, whether it be commercial, industrial, residential, all have traffic calming features that we've been imposing for some time.
Correct.
This just happens to be one that's likely to be developed, very likely to be developed, from what I hear.
Correct.
So let's talk about the environmental concerns a bit. In the findings of fact, it talks about a statement of overriding conditions, but I didn't see, and maybe I just didn't read it properly or find it, what specifically we're overriding or recommending to be overridden in the environmental document that is unavoidably mitigated, if I said that right.
Unavoidable, that basically unavoidable and unmitigatable. What you have are traffic impacts and noise impacts that, regardless of the mitigation measures imposed, cannot be reduced to a less than significant level.
You're talking about noise from construction or noise from actual utilization of the project?
I believe it was noise from traffic after construction had occurred.
That's 1.5 decibels. I mean, it's not like it's a big deal.
It's not a big deal except for specific lots where the backyard or the house abuts the roadway. That would be the noise impact. And basically what the statement of overriding consideration states is that the benefits of this project outweigh whatever those potential impacts may be. So like with traffic, you have impacts.
So our environmental reviews have now gone to the level of having to make a finding of an overriding condition for 1.5 points on on a DV. God love California.
It really isn't that big of a deal.
Well, I don't think it's a big deal at all, but I was trying to understand why we're being asked to make a finding and a statement of overriding condition, if that's what it is. But I'm not clear on it, so I don't know that I could even vote on it tonight. But I'm not clear on that. Significant and unavoidable.
Mm-hmm.
If it's significant, if 1.5 dBs is significant in somebody's analysis, the only way it's unavoidable is to not build it.
The only way that it would be unavoidable would be to have those lots not in that location.
So you go out and do a noise study 5 feet further east or west and come up with a lesser finding, and that's how you cite the house?
No, that's not how you cite the house.
And do you take into consideration the noise a bicyclist makes going down the bike trail on 70th? Never mind. Don't answer.
No, I believe they
Don't
were
answer
only
that.
looking. You don't want me to answer that. Okay.
Being facetious or rude, I'm not sure which. Okay. So when you call out the certification of the environmental impact report as EIR number 1502, it's actually State Clearinghouse number 2015111056.
Correct. So internally within the city, we, just like we assign CUPs numbers and tentative parcel maps have numbers, EIRs have city numbers attached. So this is EIR 1502.
But in the resolution, it calls out the SR number.
But in the resolution, it does include the state clearinghouse number.
It's been a while since we certified a EIR.
Yes, it has been. The last one we did would have been solar in 2015.
Yeah. Okay. So, in Resolution 17-15, if one, two, three, four, five, six whereas is down, you don't insert the state clearinghouse number, nor do you put it in the resolution itself, other than on somewhere else. It's not in the resolution, or is it there and I just didn't see it? Oh, it is. It's on the last page in the resolve section, right? So on page 4 of the resolution 1715, it doesn't call out EIR 1502. It calls out the state clearinghouse number. It just seems inconsistent to me. It ought to be one or the other.
Okay.
But again, I don't know.
That can be modified.
What do you think, Jocelyn? Doesn't matter?
Consistent is probably good.
It can be modified for you.
Consistent is probably good just for purposes of clarity.
Condition 57 is modified. What did you do there? In the standard condition? You're allowing sheet flow on this as opposed to transition through the paseos.
This was modified for this what we call a sump condition, And it was as a result of what we learned from the flooding that happened in September of 2015, I believe.
So this is
We're being more conservative in our design to help protect the residents.
a better solution. So you don't get those backups on those narrow outlets
Correct.
like we had on 70th and L2 or whatever it was.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. On the condition list number 14, could you explain what the offset is? Could someone please explain what the offset is on the mitigation monitoring program?
What offset?
Is there an offset on that? Because we didn't get the mitigation monitoring document until late Friday.
Right, and that is Exhibit B.
Okay.
It's not the executive summary of the EIR.
Okay. Which you have electronically, but not a hard copy. Okay. All right, thank you. Anybody, anything else?
Just for a quick comment on the CFD, since I do.
Normally, Lisa, you get one shot, but we'll let you talk.
Thank you so much, Jim. You're so kind. On the CFD or Melrose, I will say that, yes, normally when the neighborhood adopts a Melrose, it does reduce the sales price because they have to incentivize people to purchase those homes. It also reduces the valuation going forward. So like if I was to sell my home today, I wouldn't get top dollar because I have a $1,600 Melrose on my property that was there before I even bought it. I didn't buy it like that. I didn't initiate it. I just bought it like that. So in that respect, it reduces the sales price going forward, not just initially, but always. Those, in my tract, for instance, there's 3 or 4 homes that are still for sale that they cannot get sold because of the Melrose. Okay, and the other thing I have about Chris's little comment about roundabouts, your data is not actually right, because if you compare a data study from 1 year compared to how long that intersection was like that previously, it's not really a good comparison. You have to let the roundabout stay like that for about 10 years before you can make an adequate comparison. And then also, a lot of people avoid that intersection now. They won't go down that street. They'll go down K. So it increases traffic down the other streets. So if you even did a traffic study and you put a little line like they do to measure the number of cars going through that section of Avenue L, and compared it to 2 years ago, you will probably find less cars going down that street because of that roundabout. If I can go down K and get through a light, I'm going to go down K and get through a light, or I'm going to go down Avenue M that doesn't even have anything. I'm not going to go through L and 10th.
All right, thank you, Lisa.
There you go.
Care to add anything, Mr. Ludicky, or your staff?
No.
All right.
I think we've evaluated the roundabout issue pretty thoroughly internally.
All right, thank you. Okay. So, the applicant have anything further to add before we do what we're going to do, whatever that is? All right, thank you. We appreciate everyone's comments tonight and the work that's been done on this application over these many months. So, what's your pleasure? Anyone?
Since we had such a late issuance of some of the documents, do you think we should take till the next meeting?
Personally, I'm not prepared to take action on this tonight, but that's just me.
So could we move to continue it to next month's meeting?
If that's the motion, I'll certainly listen to that.
Looking for a second.
I'll second that.
So it's been moved and seconded to continue for 1 month? Anything further? All right, please vote.
Motion
All right,
passes
thank you.
4-0.
And hopefully we'll have a full commission next month so we can resolve this once and for all. And ultimately our action, whatever it is, then it would go to the city council, right?
The specific plan will go to them.
Right.
But the map and the other wouldn't unless there's an appeal.
Right. Okay. Very good. Thank you. All right. The next item is item 8, which is a public hearing on wireless telecommunication ordinance. The applicant's the City of Lancaster. Mr. Ludicky?
Ms.
Go ahead.
Swain will give the report.
Whoever.
So Chairman Vos and Commission, the city's zoning ordinance establishes the requirements for wireless telecommunication facilities under Article 13. These sections provide design standards for minor and major wireless facilities, submittal requirements, requirements for co-location of wireless facilities, and abandonment procedures. Due to changes in regulations regarding wireless telecommunication facilities, the city has worked to update and revise Article 13. The proposed amendment provides greater detail on the design and submittal requirements for wireless telecommunication facilities on private property and establishes new requirements for the placement of such facilities within the public right-of-way. This includes entering into a facilities lease agreement for wireless communication facilities on city-owned utility poles and within city properties, so city parks, on city buildings. These new requirements provide city staff with greater control over where facilities can be placed, how many of them are located in a given area, and ensure that the city is compensated for the use of their facilities. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission vote to recommend this ordinance to the City Council, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Do I have speakers on this?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay. Any questions? What's your pleasure?
I'll move adopt resolution number 17-16, recommending to the City Council adoption of an ordinance revising regulations for wireless telecommunication facilities.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All right, anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. And the last action item is new business, item number 9.
So what you have before you is a proposed revision to the street light standards that the city currently utilizes for streetlights that are used on capital projects and in private developments. The staff was directed to create or look for a more updated and consistent look for streetlight poles within the city. And we've selected a more, say, modern, streamlined look to replace the current concrete streetlights that we have. These would be the cast aluminum or steel? Steel that are powder coated in any color that we chose to implement, and would have, I can't find my pointer, decorative bases that we could select. They could either be sleek as shown in the rendering, or they could be more embellished depending on a given location or a given development. There are two options. This one here would be the street lighting along streets, and we can do a shorter one for pedestrian lighting along paths and parks. You also have one that could be jointly used. It would be one pole that provides the street light and a smaller one that provides pedestrian lighting. That would be used in very limited locations, maybe like a parking lot that had a walkway that needed to be more brightly lit. These would be a two-piece split-base design, as I described, with the bottom piece allowing for more decorative uses as needed. And Troilise can provide you some more information regarding.
So these are steel, powder-coated
Correct.
structures?
Yep. Manufacturer has
They're mounted on with stainless steel bolts and nuts and washers?
Correct. And depending on the because like Jocelyn was saying, we haven't selected a manufacturer yet. So this is the aesthetics that we're going for. And then there are multiple manufacturers that can produce
One
this
right down
product.
the road here in
Town, yes, they can do it. And depending on the manufacturer, some of them, they design their pole as they all have to meet FHWA breakaway standards. So they actually design their pole to breakaway. Others use breakaway bolts, where they bolt it to, and then the bolts will actually shear off. Typical cost on a street light like this is 1/2 to 2/3 our current street light. The current street light pole, which is the concrete poles you see, around $2,300. So you're looking at somewhere between $1,000 to $1,800 range for this new one, depending on the manufacturer. Lifespan 35 to 50 years, probably closer to 50 years given the climate that we're in, dry, arid, hot. The pole can be powder coated, any color we like, or left in a more metallic look. The bases are typically cast aluminum, and they can again be powder coated any color that we would choose as well. I think that hits about all
It's a
the
typical
points.
design you see in other states east of us, particularly in the Midwest and east.
Have seen some there. Also, if you go to, I believe there's a few in Santa Monica. I think they may have recently changed.
It's
their
not
standard.
typical. You don't see much of this in California.
No, most everybody's using the concrete poles because all street lights up until recently were usually owned by Edison, and Edison's standard was the concrete pole.
All right.
So they had a thing in the newspaper today that talked about the BYD lights. Are the canopies for these lights going to be able to take that one in, or will it have to be a customized or remade light?
It'll accommodate that light.
Is this a typical or a custom design, or when you go to the manufacturer, will you pick one out that kind of is close to this, or are you going to make them come up with a whole new design?
No, all the manufacturers that we talk to have designs that are similar to this.
Will there be a place on the pole to hang like an event flag like we do on the boulevard?
Yes.
Would, say, like around the college with their new custom colors that they came out with, would they be able to choose to have their poles match their school colors?
The pole could match their school color, but I think that would be
Not on the public right-of-way necessarily.
that would be a bigger question that would have to be answered.
On site with their new site plan and development, their $300 million bond expenditure relocating their administrative core and, central access at about, what is it, J10, J12, somewhere in there?
The new signal is at J12.
Is it J12 is where they're,
J12 and 30th Street
where
West.
they're looking to put in their new
Correct.
Well, it sounds to
backbone or
me.
spine down the-
2019 is what I'm hearing. I think.
What's that?
2019.
2019?
Yeah, first, this year, I think they want to start with the utility relocations that are there, and then they'll have that done, and then their funding becomes available for that intersection, 2019.
Right. That's great. So the way it would work, if this is adopted and this project, for instance, would be conditioned under the new, whatever the standard is, whatever the time comes, building permit, that's what it would get, that's what they would get. Then it's up to the developer to acquire from whatever manufacturer they choose something that meets that standard.
Correct.
We don't pick the manufacturer, we set the standard.
Correct.
Correct.
And there are manufacturers right here in the Antelope Valley that can do that.
There
Whether
are.
their price points is different, that doesn't have anything to do with us. However, so what happens now, since the city owns the streetlights now, if one is damaged, is it replaced like for like? Is that what happens, or is the
Yes.
currently that's what
Yes.
happens?
So in the areas where the concrete light poles already exist, if one got hit and knocked down, we would replace it with another concrete. We wouldn't want this new steel pole sticking, very noticeable in that location.
So what are you doing at traffic signal locations then? How would this design, so is it the...
Well, at traffic signal locations, we don't put a separate street light. The light is actually
I know
on.
that. So the Cobra portion of this thing, the light fixture and its mast then is attached to the existing structure, traffic signal structure.
Yep. So at traffic signals, the light is actually attached to the traffic signal pole.
And
that'll remain
those are aluminum. Those aren't steel.
That'll remain the same.
They'll remain the same. It's just this.
And you'll get those will have the same Cobra head on them that the street
Currently
lights
see.
have. Yeah. And we're in the process of trying to secure funding to upgrade those right now as well.
Mm-hmm. So what is the little the shade, I guess you call that?
Well, that shield is just for it's artist rendering, I guess is the best way to describe it. That's actually going to look like the Cobra heads that you've been seeing pop up over town recently with the light replacement. So it's not going to look like that shield. It's going to look like our Cobra head.
So if you're presenting that to the city council, then you ought to have it with the way it's really going to be, huh? Okay. That looks like something we used to have in the barn. With the globe, never mind. Okay. Anything else you want to add?
No.
We just have been all over the place tonight with all sorts of stuff. Land divisions, specific plans, street light pole designs, general plan revisions. Exciting stuff.
And the next couple months will be just as much fun.
You want to talk about the next couple of months, just for fun? And tell us what's coming down the pipe? Or not? Or maybe you don't. I don't know.
Lots of fun and interesting things.
Oh, is that how you're going to end this? A lot of interesting things.
Yes.
if it's really exciting, you don't want a room full of people? Is that what you're saying?
I like to consider it the ultimate culmination of the hard work that you did through October.
Yes, okay. I remember October. Okay, where are we? Yeah, we're not quite there yet. I'm just shuffling paper here, trying to figure out what am I doing. All right, where are we? Director's announcement, that was it?
Mentioned briefly, but I will give you a little bit of an update on where some things are at. The grazing ordinance, which you reviewed, is scheduled for next week's City Council meeting. The Safe Routes to School plan will be considered by the City Council at their meeting of June the 13th. The commercial setback ordinance that you made a recommendation on may have been a couple of meetings ago, or maybe it was the last one. That is scheduled tentatively to go to the second City Council meeting in June. So just trying to keep you up to date on where some of those actions are going that you had already considered. As I mentioned or alluded to, I will reiterate, I expect that the Commission will begin review of the citywide master plan of complete streets and the associated general plan amendment with that at your meeting in June. I expect that will probably take you at least a couple of meetings to work through and discuss.
Okay. This specific plan and track map, however, that's continued, will be up first on the agenda because it's a continued public hearing?
Yes, we'll put it as the first one.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you. Commission agenda.
I had a couple of questions about the Avenue K and Division Circle K. I know that City Council overrode the Commission's 6-0 vote, but I was kind of concerned about how we're supposed to come up with those guidelines. I realized that we've discussed that last time, and you had, as staff, you had recommendation that we accept that project. Do you always make the same recommendation to City Council that you make to us, even after we have the findings like we did?
No. Staff may choose to recommend to the council that they uphold the Commission's decision. However, and that's normally what we do. That's probably 85% of what goes forward. We will recommend on an appeal that the Commission's action be upheld. However, there are going to be situations, and staff does act independently, obviously, in terms of its recommendations, where we will maybe hold to an initial recommendation to the City Council. In those instances, and in this particular case, this one that went forward last week, staff did outline its original recommendation. It outlined in the staff report also the Commission's action, and we will always summarize what the appellant's stated reasons are for their appeal. But of course, at the hearing itself, it's the appellant's job to make the case for their plea their case, so to speak. Staff will make its statements as to why it made the recommendation that it's made. And now, of course, with the Planning Commission always represented at the City Council meeting, the Council or the Planning Commission representative has their opportunity to present information for the Council's consideration and to explain the reasoning for their actions on a particular case.
It seems a little disheartening to me that when we deliberate up here and we come up with a unanimous vote for the members that are present, that it seems that the recommendation ought to be given a little more consideration instead of just being, because we discussed the issues, the convenience, the destruction or the possible infringement of other pieces of property, and I thought that we had fleshed that out pretty clearly. and it made me, vote the way I did. And I'm just not sure how the other commissioners and Chairman Bose are going to look at it in the future, how we're going to, I'm going to have to look right now at the municipal code, and I'll be in and out making the same types of findings. I don't see that this is going to stop unless the code is modified. Isn't that what we're up here supposedly doing? But it does feel a little interesting when you go to lean back and you hit the floor.
Yes. I guess I would say this. The city council is the adopter of the ordinance. As a planning commission, and I think you've stated it better than I could state it, you are looking to that ordinance as your guideline for how you are going to review a case. But on an appeal, I think we can all understand that the ordinance itself leaves some room for discretion and judgment. And in this particular case, the city council, for whatever reasons, the members that were present voted to uphold the appeal in this case. That will sometimes happen. So.
Oh, and I also wanted to thank Troy over here for helping me with a little problem I had today, because it just seemed like there was a wall going up in my neighborhood that was taller than the people that were building it, and they got the necessary permits and the proper guidance. Thank you.
So you want some
Go ahead.
Laker light posts?
A Laker light post. That's actually, that Laker light post, huh?
I grew up in a neighborhood that had steel posts, and then I have concrete posts now, but the steel posts were actually put in. They were on near 3rd Street East behind El Dorado School, but that was another lifetime ago almost.
Right.
And they were green.
Well, thank you, Mr. Luedeke, for responding on the City Council's action. I was there and when called upon, gave my remarks regarding the Commission's action on that conditional use permit. Certainly is an expectation from my chair that our responsibility as commissioners are to thoroughly vet projects that come before us, particularly those that require the discretion of a application under consideration, particularly for the sensitive receptors as well as waivers. There was a purpose, I'm assuming, that those regulations were put in place. So until they're changed, I don't think we have a choice but to evaluate applications based on the way the ordinances are written and how we choose individually to interpret those writings. And whatever public input we get, whatever staff chooses to share with us, and whatever we on our own make investigations of. So we'll just see where that takes us, because I'm assuming there are going to be more applications for mini-marts coming our way in the future.
That is a correct understanding.
Recently, I attended a conference in Sacramento a couple weeks ago, and had the privilege of listening to a speaker talking about a topic called A Fading Promise. He entitled it the Millennial Prospects in the Golden State relative to housing. A fellow by the name of Joel Kotkin. I have a link to a website that I'd like to share with all the members. So I'll forward it to your staff, so you can share it with the members, so I mean, we don't communicate with one another relative to action or whatever. We have to communicate through your office, so that's what I'll do. It's a very interesting article and a lot of references to other well-written documents, and talking about the shortage of housing within the state and varying suggested solutions and potential outcomes. Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you all. And there's no extra charge. All right. Anything else that we want to talk about before we hear from public? Nope. Madam City Attorney, you don't want to throw us a curveball or something? Not tonight? You're saving it till later? Oh, great. All right. Public business from the floor, non-agendized items. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the commission on any subject regarding city business. Under state legislation, no action can be taken on non-agenda items. Members of the public should be aware of this when addressing the commission regarding items not specifically referenced on the agenda. Please, you'll complete a speaker's card, and you'll have 3 minutes to share with us. So we have non-agendized item speakers.
Yes, we do.
All right.
Fran Sarasaris.
All right, Fran. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. I can't grow anymore. I've been asking to get my chair elevated on it, and also have a four-wheel track on my wheels, but they won't give it to me. Thank you again for listening to me. First of all, commissioners and Mr. Boss and Mr. Hall, everyone else here, thank you for listening to me. First of all, I want to thank you for what you do for our city. And I also want to thank you for passing so our church can get built finally. And also your planning and your building committee has done a lot of good within the city, and I don't know, just my overall thank you, and God bless to all of you and what you do, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Very good. We're always glad to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, God bless. Oops, I'm fine. I'm not stuck. Turn it off.
Do you have another speaker?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Tamia Addison.
Is Addison?
Yes.
Good afternoon or good evening.
Good
and welcome.
evening. Hi, my name is Tamia Addison, and I'm a student of political science at Antelope Valley College. So part of my assignment was to come here and ask you guys some questions, if you don't mind.
We don't mind. I don't know if we can answer them, however.
Okay. One of them is, what is the purpose of planning commission meetings?
Gets us out of the house? No, that's not a fair answer.
A little light reading.
Okay.
You'll get some responses there.
Oh, yeah.
Ms. Cook?
We're appointed to this position. We're not elected. For most of us, we're here to give back to our community, and we always try, or I'll speak for myself, but I'm sure my fellow commissioners do as well, to be very fair and objective and listen to everybody and not form an opinion and do a lot of homework before we can come to our own individual conclusions.
Okay, thank you. What happens if a motion does not pass? Like, does the applicant have to start all over, or?
It would depend on what the applicant, the application before us.
Okay. So.
If a motion fails,
Mhm.
then, for instance, someone has applied for a conditional use permit to do some specific thing and it's denied, as was just previously discussed. There was an action last meeting before last, I guess, whenever it was. We voted no 6-0. The applicant then, or anyone, can appeal that decision, not just the applicant, but anyone. And once that appeal is filed, they pay a fee and write a letter basically on what the reason for the appeal. And then the city council then will agendize that and then hold a public hearing and then make a final determination. And then whatever the city council decides to do is final.
Okay.
So that's really what happens. Or I think that's the best explanation I can make.
In a way, it's like we're the lower court and they're the Supreme Court. So cases or issues can make their way up there and then they have the final say.
Or if we approve something and a member of the public, applicant, whoever it may be, can file an appeal. And that was done recently as well.
Yep. Yeah, the residents didn't like a project. Some residents objected to a project that was approved, and so they appealed.
So, and you can have, legal entities file appeals. It's not uncommon.
Okay. Well, that's all I have for today.
All right. Well, you learned a little then, and we
Yes.
appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and best wishes for your studies.
Okay. That's all we have. Mr. Ludicky? Anything further?
Nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Member? No? All right, we stand adjourned then to our special meeting for agenda review Monday, June 12th, 2017 at 4:30 p.m. here in these chambers. Thank you all for your work and participation tonight. Thank you.